Hi, my name is Amanda Belke, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a life coach for women. So this week on The Confident Life, we are going to be talking about perfectionism. So specifically, we're going to talk about perfectionism at work. I can't even say that perfect. And we're going to talk about the three things that really perfectionism does to us, and then three things that helps us let go of perfectionism and really truly live our lives. All right. So digging right in, perfectionism at work. So how many times have you let perfectionism at work hold you back from something? So maybe you let it hold you back from a promotion. Maybe you let it hold you back from a relationship at work. Maybe you let it hold you back from networking at work. There are so many different things that we can let perfectionism get in the way of, because I know I am not the only one out there who has ever dealt with that desire to be perfect, that desire to get everything right, that desire to feel worthy of our success, to feel worthy of who we are, and to have confidence in who we are. So whether you work for another company or you own your own business, I guarantee there have been so many times where you felt that desire to be perfect in what you do. And so that's what we're talking about today, because it's time to let go of that holding you back from your true potential of who you are. So thinking about perfectionism, this has been a big deal for me majority of my life, honestly. Um, I think back to my first corporate career that I had and how I let perfectionism get in the way and hold me back from my life, honestly. There would be nights where I would stay there until it got dark, and I had gotten in the morning when it was still dark out. So I never saw the light of day. And that was when I was working in downtown Minneapolis at Target Corporate, and it just really seeped into my life. And so the interesting thing about perfectionism, what was I doing during that time that I really let myself stay there and work all hours of the day and night? And what was driving that? Well, it was the desire to be perfect, to get all the projects done, get all this Excel spreadsheets formulated or formatted just right, and get my presentations for meetings done just the way it needed to be uh, for the promotion I was going for. And so there were so many times where I was working for that next promotion or that next recognition. But within that time of me doing X, Y, and Z to get it just perfect, there were so many times where I didn't take the time to step back and understand what the expectations actually were of my boss or of my teammates or who I was working with. And so I let that get in the way. I let that get in the way of me living my life by spending so much time at work. And I guarantee if you own your own business too, how many times can you say you set aside 2 hours for a certain project that you want to work on, and it's half a day later and hey, you're still doing that exact same project because you have this desire to get it just right and just perfect. But really, the only person in that scenario that knows when it's perfect is you. And so you could publish anything, you could put out anything to your customer, to your client, and they wouldn't know that it's not up to your perfect standard of what you think it should be. So just getting that perspective of what that looks like. Or networking. How many times have you had that desire to be just perfect in the way that you network? You have that right elevator pitch, you know exactly what you're going to say, what you're going to wear, who you want to talk to when you're networking. And you've let that hold you back from actually going out and networking. I can think of multiple times, and I'm not necessarily proud of this, but within, my years of networking where I didn't feel like I had the right outfit on, or I didn't feel comfortable with the way I looked, or I didn't have my new business card made, or I didn't have X, Y, and Z with me, or I just didn't feel like I knew enough about the organization I was going to or where I was networking, where I talked myself out of going. So instead of daring to be imperfect, I just completely took it off the table and I went home. I gave up. And because that desire to be imperfect or to be perfect held me back from networking and meeting new people and just being curious and having fun and getting to know other people, whether they're in my industry or not. And so that's what this is all about. It's letting go of that need to be perfect because it holds us back from so much. It's held me back. I can count more than on my 10 fingers how many times just in networking it's held me back because I didn't feel like I was perfect enough in the way I looked. I didn't feel like I was worth it. I didn't have the confidence to show up as who I was, because I didn't feel like I had enough experience or whatever it might be to show up in that environment. So it's held me back. And if you work for a corporate company, maybe, it's held you back from a promotion. Maybe that desire to be perfect has held you back from a promotion because you spent too much time on something that doesn't matter instead of spending your time on the things that your boss is actually looking for. And so it's just being aware of how perfectionism can hold you back in the work that you do or in the business that you run and the impact that's having. So how many times have you been willing to just let go and be imperfect? I'm guessing a majority of you watching this right now, that is maybe the amount of times is 5 that you've been willing to be imperfect. And I like to pick a word of the year every year. And there was in 2016, I picked my word of the year as imperfection because I was embracing all things imperfect. And so when you think about being imperfect, it breaks down this barrier that you have because when you're try to be perfect, in what your definition of perfect is, what does that really do? What does perfect do? Well, number one, it makes you look unapproachable and honestly intimidating to so many people. And so it creates that barrier. So you don't get to truly connect with the people you want to because they're intimidated by you or you keep putting up this persona that you're perfect or trying to be. And so other people have that pressure then when they see you to try and be perfect. So they won't even talk to you, connect with you because they feel like they have to be a certain way based off the persona that you're giving with that deep desire to be perfect. The other thing that perfect does, number 2, it really, it makes us have horrible time management skills. And I'm looking down at my notes right now because I'm not perfect and I do have notes in front of me. But it makes us have horrible time management skills because, like I said, how many times have you had that project that you're working on that, you estimate it should take about an hour, but then you get into it, this isn't quite perfect, or I just want to get that just right, or I could add that, and that would make it perfect. And so then that hour project turned into a 4-hour project, and your whole day is gone for the shoot, and your time management skills are totally off kilter because you are letting perfectionism drive your day. You're letting perfectionism be the pilot of your life instead of you deciding what you spend that time on and how you spend it. And in most cases, that perfectionism within time management, nobody knows that it's not perfect. Like, you don't have a client or a customer that knows that what you're delivering to them isn't perfect because it's what you decided if you own your own business. It's what you decided if you're your own account manager. So understanding what perfect really means in terms of time management and how that affects you is huge. The third thing that you have to stop letting go of perfect, because perfect makes us stressed. It makes us so stressed, and it makes us lash out at the people that we truly care about. So think about when something doesn't go right and when you're trying to get everything just perfect, and at work you've got your to-do list, you're trying to get everything just right, and then that time management piece gets in the way, and because you get off schedule when you decide that it's not perfect, and then that stresses you because you start thinking about the deadlines that are coming up. And so that stresses you out even more. And then before you know it, someone calls you, or you get home from work, and maybe it's your significant other or a friend, or someone says something to you, and all of a sudden everything flies out. It's like a pressure cooker. You had all these things building up and building up, and then boom, someone says something, and you start crying, you start saying something that you didn't actually mean, and you take it all out on someone that had nothing to do with the perfectionism quota that you've put on yourself, that label that you've given yourself, that desire to be perfect, and you take it out on people that don't deserve it. And more than that, you take it out on people that you really love and people that you care about who, don't deserve it. And so those are the three things that perfect does. It creates barriers, it makes you horrible at time management, and it makes you stressed, and it makes you lash out at people that you truly love. So it's time we get rid of trying to be perfect all the dang time. And how do we do that? How do we let go of being perfect at work? And whether that's at our company or the work that we do in this world, how do we let go of that and really start to own our imperfection? Number one tip is just do your best and don't focus on being perfect. Focus on being your best. Not perfect, but what can you do best? And, deep down, each of us, we all know what our best work is. We know when it's not our best work, what we're capable of, what our potential is. And yet we all inherently know when we're pushing ourselves just a little too hard to be perfect. And so it's about taking a step back and looking at the situation and knowing that doing your best is just as good. I like to say, do your best and let God do the rest. And that doing your best is way better than perfect. And it keeps you sane, it keeps you calm, it keeps you happy and confident in the work that you're doing, because you're getting more done when you do your best and not focusing on being perfect, because perfect is a different definition for everyone. So you are going to dig yourself a deep hole if you keep trying to be perfect at everything, at the company you work for and the business that you have. The second thing, know the expectations. So I talked a little bit about this, but know the expectation of your boss or your teammates or your customers or your clients, whoever that is. Know the expectation, and don't try to do 100 times better to make it perfect. If you know the expectation, then you know what you're aiming for. But if you don't know the expectation, then you keep adding on one more thing. Oh, this would make it just a little bit better. Or I'll add one more thing. This will make it even just a little bit better. Oh, but what if I add this third thing that'll make it so much better? But maybe that's not what the person actually wants. So maybe that won't make it 3 times better, because that wasn't the expectation that your boss had, or that wasn't the expectation that your client had. And so you drive yourself nuts trying to do 3 times more things that make it better, but that's not actually what the person was expecting. So know the expectations, and then yes, strive to exceed them, but don't drive yourself crazy trying to guess at what they are and over delivering on something that you don't even actually know what that expectation is. And then the third thing, get perspective. Know that when you get something done, it doesn't, what's the worst that could happen? I guess is the question I would ask. In every situation, ask yourself, if I were to stop this right now, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst? When I was at Target Corporate, we used to always say, when we'd be spending long nights or when we'd be working too much, we had this saying on our team where it was, we're not saving babies. So that helped us get perspective on, picking out a pretty shirt or a pretty dress is great, but we're not saving babies. Maybe we don't pick out just the right thing to sell online, or maybe we don't pick out just the right thing to sell in the stores, but we're not saving human lives. And there's so much more to life than picking out a pretty shirt or a pretty dress. So get perspective on that. And then know what you value and what your priorities are. So when you find yourself striving to be perfect at your job or in your business, know what the trade-off is. What are you saying no to by saying yes to trying to be perfect? Are there people in your life that you value that are your number one value in life that you're saying no to because you're doing one step, two step, three steps more on a project at work or a project in your business so it's just perfect? Know what the trade-off is. Know what you're indirectly saying no to when you've been saying yes to perfection. So it's when you know those values, those priorities that you have, when you know where they truly stand and what you live for, it makes it so much easier to embrace your imperfection because you know that perfect isn't something you value. I guarantee that you watching this right now, perfectionism is not something that you at your core truly value. It's a mask. Being perfect is a mask. It's a costume that we wear to try and find our worth. It's a costume that we wear so people don't see our cracks and our holes and our bruises. It's a mask that we wear in order to make up for something that we don't feel comfortable with. It's when we don't feel worthy of our success, we try to be perfect. When we don't feel worthy of a relationship, we try to be perfect. When we don't feel worthy of things, we try to overcompensate with being perfect in something else. So know what that perfectionism in your life is actually hiding. Ask yourself what that is. And then just remember that. Know what your values are. Know what your priorities are. So just a quick recap here. The 3 things that you really have to, what perfect does for us is nothing good. It makes us unapproachable, creates that barrier. It makes us have horrible time management skills, and it makes us really stressed out and lash out at the people we love. So that's just the minimum of things it does. It does so much more than that, but that's the minimum. And then we need to stop that and let go of perfect so that we can be our best selves. And we do that by doing our best and not, instead of focusing on perfect, we do that by knowing the expectations and defining what the expectations are at work or in our business. And we do that by getting perspective and asking ourselves, what's the worst that could happen in this situation? So those are the 3 things to start doing in order to let go of that perfectionism bug that we've all dealt with at some point. And just remembering that those cracks and those bruises and those holes of who we are, because we're all imperfect, and it's about getting raw and real and vulnerable about that, because that's what connects us all to each other is our imperfection and those holes and those bruises. But those holes, those bruises, and those cracks, that's what lets our light shine through. That's what lets the beauty and the core of who we are as a person shine through. And all of our cracks, we crack in different ways. We have different experiences that crack us. And although they crack us in a way that maybe doesn't feel good at the time, the way our light shines through in the core of who we are and how that shines through that crack, that's what makes us uniquely who we are. That's what makes you uniquely who you are. It's what makes you have this gift and this light that you can share with the world that no one else can share, because they haven't had that same experience that cracked them in the same way in order for them to let their light shine through that specific crack. So know that, and dare to be perfectly imperfect with me. Just try it this week. What is one area of your work where you have been struggling with imperfection or with perfection? So what's been one area of your work, whether you work for a company or you own your own business, where you've really been struggling with trying to be perfect in it every single day, every single project where you're trying to be perfect. And comment below with what that area is that you've been trying to be perfect, because I know you're not alone, and I will reply to every comment that is below about what area you tried to be perfect in and how we're going to work through that, in addition to the steps in letting go in this video. So go out there in this big, beautiful world and love someone more today.